So starting. Oh, and we're live. Welcome to the 4th episode of DMAR's Top Producer Hangout series. My name is Andrew Abrams, and I will be your moderator for today. I'm a realtor at Vision Real Estate. I focus mainly on buyers, sellers, and investors. I'm currently on the board of directors. I'm the chair of the Government Affairs Committee and RPAC. Joining me is Nicole Rufener. She is the managing broker of Urban, a locally owned and operated boutique real estate firm established in 2016. A Colorado native, Nicole can't get away from the wonderful Denver lifestyle. Her passion for urban development and love for servicing her clients and community makes real estate the perfect career for Nicole. I'd also like to mention that Nicole served in the past on DMAR's Market Trends Committee. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to talking with you today, Andrew.
Yeah, me too. So let's get straight into it. Tell me a little bit about how you got into real estate and what did you go through to get where you are today?
Well, I got into real estate about 12 years ago. I started out part-time, the dreaded part-time agent, but I realized quickly that if I was going to do it and do it for real and succeed, I had to jump in full-time. So actually, it was 12 years ago that I jumped in full-time and got my start.
Awesome. I started part-time too. I did 2 deals my first month, and then I don't think I did another deal for about 24 months, and then realized, oh, you kind of really need to go in full-time. So I completely agree. So what do you kind of contribute to your success today?
There's a couple things I contribute to my success. So first of all, when I got into real estate, I came from the corporate world. So I had absolutely no experience with sales or running my own business when I got into it. So I had to go out and hire people, and I hired coaches to teach me on the different skills I needed for all the different facets of what we do. So I've worked with financial coaches, I've worked with personal coaches, business coaches, sales coaches, leadership coaches, you name it. And it's something I really enjoy and I'll continue to do throughout my career. Also just a commitment to learning. So that really goes hand in hand with working with coaches, but I mention it just because it's such a huge driver for me. It's just continuing to learn, better myself. And I think that's pushed me forward in real estate. Mm-hmm. Also, just finding the right company. So I've worked at a couple different real estate companies throughout my years, and I've landed at Urban, which is perfect for me. So for every agent, you have to find that right culture, the right fit, where you have the right people to support you, the technology, the training, where you're really just set up for success. And then last but not least is just hustle. So when I got into the business, I wasn't married at the time. I had to make my own income, and so I had no option to fail. I just had to go out there, do it, and get some sales done so I could bring home an income to support myself.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you set yourself up not only in the present back then, but also for the future. I think, a couple components that you touched on was, I think education is the absolute world. And if you put education with that hustle, it's hard not to be successful. And so, when you look at kind of your progression, it sounds like, and also going into being a managing broker to get all those lessons and then get kind of specialized professions, you really have a wide range of skills that now you're able, it sounds like, to kind of pass on and work within your real estate firm. So that's awesome.
Thank you. And I think, as we all know, as fellow realtors, that there's so much more that we do than just dealing with selling a house. We sometimes are a therapist, sometimes a salesperson. We have to know how to run a business, do accounting. So I think it's important for everyone to find people who are experts in those different components to help you out.
Definitely. I always think that, everyone assumes you know everything about everything, so you might as well start somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm gonna jump right in. So what are your tips for managing a team, and how do you deal kind of with conflict when it arises?
So I think the biggest thing that's important when you're working with a team is constant communication and just very open and transparent communication. So that means upfront with your team, you need to establish what your expectations are for the team as well as expectations for each team member. I think you have to help them establish goals, communicate what your goals are and find out what their goals are, and then establish a plan that encompasses both of those. That also means meeting consistently so that you can sit down and really review where everyone's at and hold each other accountable. I think you have to have systems in place, and if you don't, then use your team members to help establish a system. If there's not a system, then you're just free-flowing and you don't really know what everyone's doing, and you need to really have a clear path about what each team member does for each transaction.
So,
and then, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just so excited about everything you're saying. So going a little bit more about the systems though, what components, like if someone's just starting to want to build a team, what kind of foundation or like what are the basic system 101 lesson that you can kind of give out to the viewers that could kind of help them start the path to creating that?
So my agents make fun of me sometimes because I'm a huge proponent of process maps or checklists. And
Yeah.
I learned that from a lender a long time ago, where he just said, really take the time to sit down and document what you do day in and day out. And sometimes that's not a fun process to actually take the time and sit down and do that. But once you have it, you have a checklist so that you know that you're never missing a beat with a client or a transaction. But then when you start to bring on team members, that becomes the job description. You go through that checklist, you find out what are the pieces that you absolutely have to do, that you love to do, that you want to keep, and then what are the pieces that you could outsource. And so it really makes it easy to figure out what type of help you need to create that job description, and then again to just have a clear path for both parties when you are working together.
Nice. I think that's awesome. And I see with the consultant as well. And that was the first thing that they had me start on. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like it. I'm probably not quite as organized as I'm sure you are in getting those systems. But what it really did help was he said, you know what, the goal is to increase your hourly, but you can't figure out what your hourly is if you don't know, basically what you're doing every day. So getting that in place, I think is really important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then one other thing that I think is really important in working with a team is if you can transition yourself to focus on their success first, then it's just natural that your success will follow. And then you have happy team members who are doing well. And I think that just creates a synergy where you have a team that continues on versus just the turnover where agents learn and then leave and you're starting over.
Yeah, great point. So speaking of kind of newer agents, what advice can you give someone who is new and just getting started in the industry?
So I love working with new agents. That's actually my main role at Liv, is doing the hiring and the training. And so I work with new agents, several times a year as we take in new groups. And my best advice, just with all these groups I've worked with, is focus on the basics. I know that's not the sexy part of what we do, but I think it's so easy to want to run out and think that there's some secret to success or some new marketing tool that will ensure your success. And certainly marketing is important, and I know we'll talk about that later. But the basics are, we are salespeople and we service people. And so you have to have a database, you have to grow your database, you have to provide value to people and stay in connection with people day in and day out. And then your business will grow from there. I've always been a big ninja sales fan. So I like the relational sales piece. And that's what I talk to our agents about, that, sometimes it can be intimidating to make 50 phone calls a week and do the handwritten notes, but that's the most important piece, in my opinion, that we do. So I would tell new agents to focus there first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Also, just going into a transaction, and when you do have your first clients, remember that what you define service and a high level of service may be different than what your clients define it. So that's one of the most important pieces I've learned in my career, is that you have to take the time to find out what your clients define service as, and then service them from there.
That was one of my very first deals was with my sister. And so, you always get the best truth basically from the ones that love you the most. And so the way I was communicating with her wasn't exactly fitting with her style. So she was like, listen, I need text every night just to give me an update. And then I need like an email once a week. And then you still need to call me. And I was like, wow, that feels like a lot. But then you go, and that's one of the first questions I ask when I'm starting to work with the buyer is, what forms of communication, not only in the way that you communicate, just talking about details, but also via text or email, and kind of what works, because you'd be surprised how different everyone really is. So I think it's a great point.
No, I think you make a good point that has to be a part of your first meeting, your first buyer intake, or your listing presentation, just asking them how they like to communicate. So.
Yeah, definitely. So what marketing techniques and strategies have you used, or ones you recommend to agents?
So first of all, I feel like I'm really lucky. I came to Liv Urban because there's a whole marketing team in place. Mm-hmm. It can be really expensive if you're going out there and hiring people to do the design work for you. and then paying for all the print costs. So that was part of why I chose my company. And they really sit down with us to figure out, okay, what are your goals? What type of niches do you want to talk to this year? And they help you figure out your strategy, and then they create marketing pieces for us. So I'm really lucky in that sense. One of the things that I really use for my business, and I've partnered with other live agents who want to use this for their business as well, is I created a blog called Denver Vibe. Mm-hmm. And the way I use that to build my business is a couple ways. So first of all, the blog was created to define and help describe the personality of our different urban neighborhoods, because that's where I focus my business. And we thought the best way to define a personality is to go out and interview the locals and the local businesses within those neighborhoods. So I use it to grow my business because it's a great excuse to reach out to people who are in my database, people I know who live in those neighborhoods, see if they want to be featured and interviewed. And then also I've gotten to know local influencers, the local business owners, by reaching out to them to see if they want to be featured. And so I use that just to make connections and build relationships. And that's the piece I enjoy most.
That's awesome. So what area do you focus on when you're doing it for your own personal business?
In terms of location, which neighborhood?
Yeah, location and just, yeah, like do you choose a location based off of it's close to your house or it's close to your office? Or are you choosing one because it's got like a higher turnover rate? And like, yeah, how do you choose the businesses?
Oh, so the way I choose the businesses is really just when you come across, like, first of all, they have to be local. So that is the one piece. It can't be a large franchise.
You're not going to love the Wendy's?
Like, no, we haven't interviewed a Wendy's yet.
Yeah. I'm an Arby's man, but.
We'll have to go there for lunch after.
Exactly.
No, so I think that's the most important piece, is just keeping local. And then there's really no hard or fast rules after that. So just people you connect with or businesses that you go into and you make a connection, just asking if they want to be featured. And the best part about it is we've hired a professional photographer. So we're really finding that the local businesses love that piece because now they get these free photos that they can use in their marketing as well. So there's really no rules in who we interview. And then, just in terms of where I sell and do business, it's just urban Denver. And as you know, that encompasses a lot of neighborhoods. We have a lot of great urban neighborhoods.
We really do. And I love the component of going to the businesses that are local, just because, we know the statistics on how many people are moving to Colorado. And I think the thing that really holds its character are those local businesses. And those people put so much into it. So when you can then translate what they put into it based off of photos and that personal relationship, let alone being personable, your business can really excel. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's so exciting to hear other business owners' stories and why they're passionate about what they do. That it's fun to feature that, but it also inspires us as well. Definitely.
And as we know, real estate is such a personal business, and so it translates into their business that they're trying to make as well. Mm-hmm. So next question is, and this is probably one that I probably need the most advice on, is how do you basically balance your personal life and your career? Are there any tips for that work-life balance? And if you could find my off switch, I would really appreciate it. So.
I think that's one of the most painful pieces for realtors. And it's something, if I could change one thing in this industry and have a big impact, I wish that I could change the idea that we have to be available and work all the time. And I talk with a lot of agents, whether it's in our company or outside, who at some point this becomes a problem for them because they're having great success or they're afraid to say no to clients. And so they continue to just say yes at the cost of maybe their friends or family. So the tricks I've found and what we talk about internally here is really you have to sit down, first of all, and find out what your boundaries are before you can even communicate those to your clients. So I learned from Doris Johnson. She was another one of my coaches. A lot of people have probably heard of her. She teaches efficiency by design to realtors. But she always talked about sit down and look at your calendar and block out time for yourself. So what nights of the week do you want to commit to being with your family or friends or going for a workout or taking just time to yourself? And then what days of the week are you going to work and take off? So if you actually block that in your calendar, I think when you're starting to schedule appointments with potential clients, you can sit there and give them 3 or 4 options of when to meet, but you can still honor, oh, Wednesday night, I want to stay home. You know, I made a commitment to my husband. So I think you have to start there. And then from there, it's just one of the hardest pieces is being disciplined enough to stick to that and not constantly sacrifice yourself or your time. And it also means that you have to communicate those boundaries to your clients. So when you first meet with them, let them know when you're available, when you're not. So do you start answering the phone at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning? You know, when do you stop taking calls at night? And then, as we know, we're in the service industry, and everything, because of technology, moves so fast, and people do expect really fast responses. So I think it's more important than ever and worth every penny to hire people to help you, so that if you're not available, someone else can service your clients, they don't miss a beat, and then you can feel okay and not guilty about taking some time off.
Yeah, I think that those are all great points. And, you know, I feel like you're talking directly to me there, because those are the things where I'm like, oh yeah, you need to actually communicate that with your clients. And I know how to communicate to make sure that their needs are met, but sometimes you kind of have to do the same, so that way you're available, you know, to be at the top of your game every time they kind of call and need anything or want to go do some showings.
And I think too, you don't have to tell them, you know, I can't meet with you because I have dinner plans with my husband or a friend. It's an appointment, and it's an appointment with yourself. So you can just let them know, hey, I'm meeting with someone else at that time. But I have these 4 other times I can meet with you. Does something else work? Or if not, then I have someone else here who can meet you to show you that house. And then the biggest thing I had to really learn in order to create time management for myself is you can't compare yourself to others. So if I'm looking at the realtor next to me who is okay working 80 hours a week, you know, I might beat myself up if I don't work that many hours. So you just have to really focus on what your goals are, stay focused on that, really get clear on how many hours a week you do want to work, and try to stay within that range.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I think, you know, learning just about yourself and going through that process is that, you know, kind of setting the goals for yourself and your lifestyle. And just like our clients kind of have their own individual needs, you know, realtors are people too, and we need our individual needs as well. So I think those are great points. So how important do you think are client reviews, and where should agents like get and use them for?
I think they're crucial. So more and more these days, you know, as we all know, a lot of potential buyers or sellers go online before they even pick their realtor. So it's important because of that. They could be picking you out online. But I think even more than that these days is, you know, often we look to our peers to get a recommendation, whether it's for a specific product or a realtor. And more people actually do the research before they reach out and buy a product or call someone to hire as a realtor. So having those reviews is important, because I think we're just, as consumers, we're used to being able to read below and say, these are the product reviews, you know, these top 3 sound great, I'm going to move forward buying it. Or these are the reviews or past testimonials this agent has had. They sound like they resonate and they would be a good realtor for me.
Have you had any feedback from other realtors worried about what the review is going to be, where they're saying, you know what, like, I know these are really important, but what if they don't give me 5 stars? Do you have like any advice if that kind of ever comes up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, first of all, you just have to stop worrying about that. And when you ask for a review or a testimonial, you have to also ask for it and want it, because you're wanting to improve yourself and your service. So really not just going out and trying to get that perfect review to post, but really taking that to heart and finding out what clients thought of you and your service, and then using that to improve your business. So I also think it really shows a lot of authenticity. I can't say that word. If you don't have just all 5 stars and only post those, if there's a range, and obviously you don't want to have bad reviews, no one likes those. But if for some reason you had someone that posted something that wasn't a 5-star review, really just respond to that and honor it and move forward and just get more reviews, so that it all balances out in the long run.
I love it. I think it's such a great point, and that accountability piece is so important. You know, even when I go on Yelp, right, and I look at a restaurant or something like that, if there's 12 reviews and they're all 5 stars, I assume everyone who's reviewed it works at that restaurant. So, you know, sometimes there's that balance too, and I think people can generally look at it that way as well. So what real estate secrets can you share for the public?
So this is the biggest lesson I've learned from transitioning from being a salesperson to a managing broker, is just to really become a good critical thinker. And I think if you can do that as a realtor, you'll service your clients at a much higher level. And what that means is, in every transaction, you're negotiating for clients, and often there's things buyers and sellers don't agree on. So if you can step back and get outside of the emotion of whatever the debate is and sit there and figure out all the possible outcomes, what are all the different possible solutions, and then call your client and present that, and then pick up the phone and start negotiating with the other agents, I think that you'll come up with a lot more solutions that could keep a deal together, that could truly be a win-win for both parties. But then you also if you become emotional like your clients, then I think it's a much bumpier road for your client. And if you can take that out, really think through situations, you'll service your clients better, but they'll have a more enjoyable experience throughout the transaction too. So that's been, one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and the secret I would share with new agents. I think too, I said this before, just focusing on relationships. And that's where you can really have a lot of fun with this business. Is if it's not that your whole life has to be about real estate and selling, but just focusing on connecting with people and getting to know people and doing things you enjoy. And then as you get to know people and they see your marketing and they ask you about work and what's going on in the market, you'll naturally start to get business from that. So when you get to that place, it's just, it becomes a great lifestyle and it really becomes fun.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. The phone piece and the strategy part to critically think through a process, I think it's something that every business doesn't do enough. So that was one of the things I learned pretty early on is I take 30 minutes of every day. It's in my calendar. It's the only thing that's consistent in my life to take time just to think, try to have no distractions, or even if there are some distractions, having them be the ones that kind of help you think and process. And it creates a lot more opportunity to have that kind of creative flow. And you think, oh God, there's this terrible problem. I don't know how to overcome it. Well, when you give yourself that time to not get distracted, it really creates so much opportunity. And then translated into actually calling, and this is my own realtor pet peeve, is a lot of people don't call anymore. So many things can be done via email or text. And for the most part, that works. But when you're negotiating, I don't understand how you can really make reads without really picking up the phone and having a conversation with the person. Because, as our job as realtors, it's our job to just communicate our sides, right? We have that fiduciary responsibility. And if you're not really advocating and understanding where the other side is and explaining them so that way they can then explain to their buyer or seller, I think at times, you can lose something in translation. So I think those were all really great points.
No, I can't agree more. And I love that you do that. That's something I'm going to have to borrow, is just carving out time every day to sit down and reflect back on what happened and could you do it better, or what other solutions are out there, and just take that time to think. I'm sure you get a lot of creative ideas in that time. And I agree with you too, just in terms of seeking to understand all parties before you start to throw solutions out there or before you start to negotiate. I think you can get in your own way and get in your client's way if you don't do that. Definitely.
So switching gears a little bit, can you share your thoughts on kind of mentorship in the industry? Did you have a mentor? If so, kind of who were they and what did they do for you?
So I'm a huge believer in mentorship in all industries. If I look at the top business people that I admire, like an Oprah, she openly talks about always having a mentor, constantly working with mentors, and then in turn giving back and being a mentor to other people. So I think it's just a way of life, and it's a way of passing knowledge on and giving back. In real estate, I think it's crucial because as new agents, I think it can mean either succeeding or failing. And we've set up a system within Live where our new agents come in. They do have classroom learning, but they have a mentor partner for their first 2 years. And we have found once we've incorporated that into our new agent program, we've seen a much higher level of success for the new agents. So I think it's crucial in our industry. I do have a couple mentors right now, and I've had several throughout my life, and I seek to always have a mentor. Right now, one of my mentors is also my boss, so Mark White, who's one of the owners of Live Urban. And he's really been working with me the past 3 years to become a better managing broker, to be a great manager, and just teaching me how to run a real estate company. And then I'm also working right now with Carla Cabaz, who is my current coach, but she's working with me to become a better leader in my personal life and then in my career as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm going to shoot 2 more questions at you, and then we'll probably be wrapping up here. But what's the most important lesson you've learned in your career?
I touched on this earlier, but I think you learn really quickly that everyone has a different way they define service. So again, we talked about this before, just really getting clear on what your client defines as a high level of service, and then making sure that you serve them from that place. Something else though is I took a lot of time to figure out what my personal mission statement is for both in my personal life and in my business, what my core values are. And I think if you can take the time to figure out, what your values are, when you go into a service industry, if you have someone who, has some constructive feedback or isn't happy with you, if you can sit back and look and say, did I serve this person with integrity to my core values? And if you can honestly say yes, I think it helps you sleep at night, because you did the best you can for that client. And yes, you'll listen to their feedback and maybe there's room for growth. But I have found if I am clear on my values and I know I service people from that place, then I'm not going to beat myself up at night, and I'll be able to sleep if someone does have some constructive feedback. And we are in a service industry, so I think that getting clear on what you define your values and your service as will really help you.
And I think that kind of fits consistently too with everything you've said, is you need those systems in place. And, sometimes we think of systems as like you do number 1, then you do number 2. But generally, you can't get to number 1 without having kind of that moral foundation and a real inward look on what your goals are. Because like we've been discussing, everything's so individualized. So I think that's really good advice.
Thank you.
So what's the most challenging part of your job?
We touched on this before too. Yeah. So time management. It's the same thing for me as a managing broker. So the agents are out there and they have issues that come up in terms of they have to write a contract, they have a question about that and they need to get it in right away, or a conflict arises. So just figuring out how to manage my time so I can get my work done but still be available to them right away, and then also still honor my time with my family. And so that sometimes can be a challenging piece, and then sometimes it works well. And then the other thing too is, in being a managing broker, I sometimes have to deal when there are issues that rise to my level, so conflict. And I enjoy helping people in those situations. I enjoy facilitating the conversations and I enjoy those negotiations. But sometimes I take those emotions on myself. And so I really just have to work to not let, if there is a heated debate going on, to let that affect my day.
I think that's a great point too. And for me, that's one of my personal challenges, as well as I have so much emotional investment in my clients that then to translate into spending time with my wife, for it not to hinder the experience with her. And thank God that she is very, very patient with me, because I can't say I always do it that well. And I think she does appreciate the amount of emotional investment I have. But there really should be that balance, and it's very difficult at times to kind of separate it. So I understand what a challenging piece that is.
Yeah, and especially when you're passionate about what you do. So it's hard for your head to stop spinning about even just ideas or things that happen during the day. So I like what you said. You have to find a way to step away from that when you do go home at night so that you can be present. And then the same thing when you go to work, so that you can step away from what's at home and be present for your clients.
Definitely. I grew up in like a summer camp mentality, and our goal was always to make each camper feel like they're the only camper. I've really translated that into working with clients. I got told pretty early on the difference between a good realtor and a great realtor is you could have something really not great happen and then a different client call, and you want them to feel like they're your only client. So, I think it's easier said than done. But it takes practice. And I think that's the thing, that's that grit part that everyone takes for granted, that they're saying like, oh no, this should be easy. I should just be able to do this. I don't think there's anything that's easy, and especially not if it's worth it at the end of the day. So that process of honestly practicing with your coworkers, or seeing things when you don't have something that's great, to try to learn how to kind of compartmentalize it and move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time, Nicole, and joining me. And thank you everyone for watching. The next episode of Top Producer Hangout series will feature Milford Adams with the guest Joseph Berry. So make sure to tune in live on Thursday, September 15th at 12 p.m. for that. So thank you again, Nicole, and I'm sure everyone will look forward to hearing more and all the great things that you're doing.
Thank you, my pleasure. And if anyone has further questions, please do reach out to me. I'm happy to share anything we talked about today. We can talk about again, or just, if someone's looking for a mentor, I'm happy to look at doing that as well.
Awesome. Do you want to give them your email address?
Sure. So it's Nicole, Nicole, at liveurbandenver.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to our Wendy's date, and everyone else have a good rest of the week. Yeah.